Thank you for listening to the Mormon Book Review podcast, hosted by Kirk Caudle. The Mormon Book Review features authors of books dealing with all aspects of Mormonism. This podcast is entirely user-supported, so if you like this podcast, please consider donating to our site by clicking on the Donate tab located on the right side of the page. An archive of all of our shows and links to the books of authors interviewed can be found at www.themormonbookreview.com.
I'm here today with Margaret Blair Young. Margaret Blair Young is the president of the Association of Mormon Letters and has published 8 books, 6 novels, and 2 short story collections. Margaret is actually the descendant of the bastard daughter of Frederick VII of Denmark, and she has written 6 encyclopedia articles and other scholarly papers on blacks in the western United States, and particularly Black Mormons. She teaches creative writing at Brigham Young University and contributes periodically to the blogs Common Consent and Patheos. Thanks for being with me today, Margaret.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Excellent. I'm sure there's millions of people listening at the moment.
I'm positive.
Now, one thing that wasn't on your bio that I wanted to ask you about is you are the president of the Association of Mormon Letters.
Uh-huh.
What can you tell me about the Association of Mormon Letters, and what's the mission, and how did that whole thing get started?
The history of it was really back with Eugene England, Richard Craycroft. Not all of your audience members will know this. We just lost Richard Craycroft, I guess a month ago. He passed away, actually, while he was having dialysis. He was just a few chairs away from my dad. My dad also has dialysis, but Richard kept track of Mormon literature. He and Neil Lambert published a book in the 70s called 22 Mormon Writers, and they were looking for the really good stuff. They were looking for Mormon authors who were kind of going beyond popular fiction and attempting to do something literary and beautiful. I think as a part of their efforts, and also because of his own motivations, Douglas Thayer was one of the first recognized authors. Of course, back in history, we have The Giant Joshua by Maureen Whipple, Virginia Sorensen. We've got several really fine authors who didn't get a lot of attention. And really the only way you would know about them is if you took a class in LDS literature, which we do periodically teach at BYU. I am going to be teaching it this next semester. And I'll teach part 2. Part 1 was taught this semester, and it's actually the first time I've done it, and I'm really excited. I requested it and was thrilled to do that. So we come up to Doug Thayer with Under the Cottonwoods. At the same time, we have Don Marshall doing this delightful collection of short stories and some epistolary fiction letters. It's a letter of a girl who starts writing a missionary who she's never met. It's just delightful stuff. It's called Rummage Sale. Rummage Sale was republished. Doug continues. He's an older guy now, but he continues to publish and some really fine things. I think the best thing to come out of the efforts begun by Gene and Neil Lambert and Richard Craycroft is a collection of short stories called Dispensations. And it's every single short story in there. All of the authors, or practically all, have been published in fine literary magazines. So they've made names for themselves outside of the Mormon corridor. And their fiction is not necessarily in the Wasatch Valley, which are much LDS fiction tends to be Utah, Idaho. We get stories in South Africa. Mine is set in Utah. Middle states. I can't remember where Dressing Esther is set, Lisa Torcaso Downing's beautiful story, but it is a magnificent collection. Angela Hallstrom was the editor, and it's a spectacular job. The other real big thing to have come out recently is a collection of poetry by Tyler Chadwick called Fire in the Pasture, and I'm actually using that in teaching creative writing now. We finished our poetry unit, but my students said several of them, they got the book and they said, oh no, Mormon poetry, this is going to be the easy rhyme, and they judged it immediately by what they would hear, the sacrament meeting poems that can sometimes sound like a Hallmark card.
Yeah.
And they started reading them and they said, wow, this is really good. And we've got actually our Utah's poet laureate, Lance Larson, has a lot of poems in there. Susan Howe, who's been published in the New Yorker, has poetry. It's a magnificent collection. So where we are right now with the Association for Mormon Letters is we don't have much money to do what we do, but we are determined to honor fine fiction. There are other conferences that focus on popular fiction, fiction that gets probably bigger audiences than the kind we focus on, but we are really interested in quality and fiction that will last, that will have an enduring, a part in even the American canon, not just the LDS canon.
I wasn't aware that BYU had a class that focused on LDS fiction. That's pretty interesting. Is that a popular class?
It has been in the past. I actually took it from Gene England, and Gene has also passed away. Do you know of Gene England's work?
I've heard of him, yeah. I'm semi-familiar with him. I don't know if everybody is familiar with him that's listening, though.
The legacy that Gene left us is so rich. He died of brain cancer several years ago.
Right.
The years go by so quickly that I remember the week that he died. I was with a very diverse group at my parents' cabin in Island Park, and my husband represented me at Gene's funeral. But I thought, actually, because Gene was so interested in diversity and so interested in pursuing fine literature, and he had been a wonderful critic of mine, and he was from Idaho, and he was a fisherman, and so I thought this is exactly the right place to pay tribute to Gene. But he really was the parent of much of Mormon literature, and especially the Association for Mormon Letters. It was really his class. Sometimes Richard Craycroft would teach it, but Gene was the one who began by suggesting we are producing really good stuff and we need to pay attention to it. We are Brigham Young University. We ought to be looking at what our Mormon artists are doing and go beyond the traditional canon and look at what we've got here. And I was persuaded in his class that we have a wealth of Mormon literature that a lot of people don't know about.
Just off the top of my head, I think Eugene was actually influential also in starting the Dialogue Journal.
Absolutely, yes, he was.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So he was involved both with the Association of Mormon Letters and Dialogue. So, yeah, he is definitely influential.
Oh.
And a name people should be knowing more than they do.
Yeah, they should. Mm-hmm.
So the AML also produces a journal, right?
Irreantum, we sure do, and it's good. It's I've seen and been a part of a number of literary journals. When I was at BYU Hawaii, I helped. I taught the class where we produced a literary journal, and that was a riot. But Irreantum is truly excellent. They have a contest every year, a fiction contest, and the winners are then published in Irreantum. Art is included, wonderful, wonderful poetry. And often when you go to an AML meeting, and we generally hold them at UVU, Utah Valley University, and I believe that's where we'll be holding it again this year in March. In fact, I'm certain that's where we'll be holding it. We just have to get our room scheduled. But the Irreantums are available to purchase for a ridiculously small price.
So for those people that might be listening who have never read Irreantum, who would it most appeal to, and what kind of submissions are you looking for? If somebody's listening